Today we're starting with an apology, and that apology goes out to you, Alan Alves. You've requested this not once, but twice, and that is awful. I've always welcomed suggestions and recommendations, and I've taken some up sooner than when you first originally requested this. And like I say, for that I'm sorry. But you persevered, and I eventually got round to it. But one of the things that was putting me off was my kind of fear, I suppose. There are, for every good independent or low budget film of any genre, there are at least 10 awful ones. And something in me said this is going to be awful. This thing in the back of my brain said I'm going to hate this. But I didn't hate it. I went in with low expectations, which I've said before on videos on this channel, sometimes gives you a better appreciation than expecting something great and not getting that. But we are talking 2008's Baby Blues, known also in the UK as Cradle Will Fall, which was written by Lars Jacobson and Amadeep Kaleka, and was directed by Lars Jacobson. It stars Colleen Porch, Joel Bryant and Ridge Kanipe, I hope I've said that right. And it is based on real events. It does say that at the start of the film, and recently I've slapped down things that claim to be real that aren't, but there is a verifiable story. So before we go into the meat of this, I do want to say up front, if you have any unresolved traumatic experiences in your childhood, particularly with your upbringing, if you had an abusive family, or that kind of thing really upsets you, don't watch this review, because I'll have to talk a little bit about that kind of stuff to obviously discuss the film, and definitely don't watch the film itself. It deals with a very real event that really happened because people didn't get the help they needed. So that is my warning to you. I don't like to bring it down and super serious, but I think I need to, right up front. So if any of that applies to you, or you even think it might, I've no objection to you turning this video off. That's fine. But with that out of the way, a brief overview of the film. So Colleen Porch plays the beleaguered mother whose husband goes out and is a long distance trucker. He does these deliveries that mean he's away for at least overnight, if not for days at a time, and she's struggling to raise a bunch of children. We have Kathy, we have baby Nathan, we have Sammy, and of course we have James Jr., known as Jimmy. And she struggles, like many single mothers do, because in effect for a lot of the time that's what she's doing. She's doing the role of a single mother, but at least not having to, I suppose, worry about the income side. And it is a tough job. People say being a parent is like the best thing in the world, but it is a big task. There is a lot to do. You can't just hope that the kids will kind of look after themselves for the most part, just feed them and they'll be fine. And she snaps. One day she just cannot take it anymore. There's a very disturbing scene. I have a whole thing about fingers, and she jabs her finger to basically pretend she's got lipstick on and do a weather report in the mirror. This is clearly the sign of a woman who has reached that final point and passed beyond it now. And then she drowns baby Nathan. We assume, anyway. She takes the baby, and then Jimmy comes a bit later on and goes, Nathan's really cold. We assume, I think, that he was drowned in the bath. And then she tries to do it to Kathy. She ends up killing Sammy. All the while Jimmy's trying to get help and sort of get out of there. There's a CB, because his dad is a long distance trucker, there's a CB that he can use to kind of get ideas about the route. Is there any traffic incidents he needs to know about, etc., before he goes out. So he's trying to raise someone there and does eventually reach his dad, sort of, but dad comes back and everything like that. And she's taken in, this poor harried mother is taken in to psych units, and unfortunately the husband does want her back, and it is kind of stated at the end that as soon as she's deemed stable enough she will be coming back, which Jimmy is terrified of. But he's like, well, I want the family, because also she's pregnant now, so we'll have baby number 5. And that's terrifying in so many ways, to Jimmy, and I totally understand his fear there. You already know that the issues of being a mother, the difficulties that come with that, are too much for her. She's already tried to kill you all and succeeded with technically 3/4. So yeah, his fear is completely founded, I would say. But it's a very terrifying story, and it is, like I say, based on real events. The trial, well, the whole case of Andrea Yates and her husband Rusty. She actually had 5 children. She had a similar kind of psychotic break about the time of the 4th, but that wasn't when she killed them all. She was seen by psychiatrists and taken in, had various diagnoses, including postpartum depression and schizophrenia, and was told another child would be her end. It would not be healthy at all. But Rusty and her had kind of been heard years ago saying they would have as many children as nature would allow. And they decided to have baby number 5 despite the best intentions of medical professionals. She was given Haldol and things like that, and apparently did stop taking it. She also lost family near the time as well. And I would say a combination of events, and I think most people who've looked into the case, and obviously the details of the case at the time, said that all of these factors just completely broke her to the point that she ended up killing all 5 of her children. There wasn't a survivor in that case. And, Rusty was deluded, I think, as well. The fact that he still persevered in saying, we'll have another kid, after the previous incident where she could have killed herself and all the children. It's a very awful situation. And through my life I've struggled, there's videos on this channel that say, I've struggled with various issues, and I've been lucky enough to finally, after a lot of trying, get the right help and persevere through it. And it is a lot of work. I'm not saying that it isn't. It's not just about the help being available, it's availing yourself of that help. But sometimes it is that it's just not there. Either the funding isn't there, or there's nowhere nearby that's suitable for you. It would require a lot more travel, and maybe part of your issues is, sort of getting out of the house, and no one will do house calls. You can't earn an income, so you can't go to private in this country. I mean, obviously in the States it's a whole different ballgame, because you have to find it yourself, kind of, and at least part fund it yourself. So there's a lot of trouble still. A lot of the stigma's been broken down, sure, and that's great. But I do think with better help and a better support network from the family, and that includes Rusty, Ms. Yates would have probably come out of this better, and this film wouldn't have happened. I do think that film is a useful tool, going back to the piece itself. Really, it is a very useful tool for escapism, of course. And I've always said, as much as I love analysing things and looking deeply and thinking about them, I do think there's a place for like popcorn, turn your brain off films, of course. But films can also show us the dark side of life. They can reveal to us the things that we don't want to look at necessarily. And through the creation of this film, I've been made aware of this situation, which I fully sympathise with everyone involved. And I do hope that anyone who's ever in the same position as the Yateses gets the help they need, gets the help they deserve. No one has to go through this. No one should go through this. In a twisted way, I'm kind of glad none of the children survived, because the therapy that they would need to live a normal life afterwards would be ridiculous. But by the same token, there's 5 kids who never got to grow up, and that's sad. So, like I say, I'm grateful for the suggestion. I always welcome them, but this is a very, very heavy film when you actually take the time to think about, yes, this was based on real events. And whilst it wasn't anywhere near as dramatic, of course, it's still something to consider. So if you know of anyone who, well, whether you know they're struggling or if someone seems like they're being too strong, and we all know someone, I'm sure, who always seems like the strong one, check on them too. Just make sure that people get the help. Whatever you can provide is enough. And I'll probably put a couple of links to some charities both sides of the pond if you need someone to help to discuss any issues with. But that'll be it for this week. Again, very sorry to be on a real downer here. I promise next time we'll do something a bit more upbeat for you all. We'll have some fun. I think we've earned it after this. But I do thank you for watching, and until next time, as always, take care.